Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, if I told you the U.S. is now sitting on, what, $36 trillion in national debt,
Yeah.
it sounds almost made up, doesn't it?
It really does. An almost unbelievable figure.
But the sources we've been digging into, they confirm it. It's a hard fact. So today, we're doing a crucial deep dive. We want to figure out how the world's richest country got into this giant hole,
Mm-hmm.
and why it's such a big deal globally, and how it might just explode in ways that affect every single one of us, even if you live nowhere near the U.S. Okay, let's unpack this.
Absolutely. It's a monumental topic. And our mission here is really to pull out the key insights from all this material you've shared,
Yeah.
to give you, the listener, a clear, solid grasp of this whole global economic gamble. What's really at stake?
Okay, so let's dive into that mountain of debt. I mean,
Okay.
$36 trillion. It's still hard to wrap your head around.
It is.
So the big question is, how? How did it get so huge? And what our sources say about this part? Honestly, it's really interesting.
Well, the thing is, the U.S. was actually spending big long before the recent crises. Our sources point back, way back, even past World War II.
Right.
Big spending on military, infrastructure, innovation, things like the welfare state expanding, the whole Bretton Woods system setting the dollar up. That kind of laid the groundwork.
Okay, so the stage was set, but then came the real acceleration points, right?
Exactly. The critical turning points. First up, the big one was the 2008 financial crisis, or just after it.
Oh, yes.
The U.S. basically faced a potential global meltdown, so they pumped, trillions into bailouts, banks, industries, plus huge stimulus packages to keep the economy afloat. It was unprecedented.
And it didn't stop there, did it? Because just when you thought maybe things would level off, boom, another crisis.
Thankfully, COVID-19 hits in 2020, and the government essentially doubled down.
Double down is right.
You had free checks going out right to people's bank accounts, massive business loan programs, expanded unemployment, all necessary perhaps in the moment, but boy, did it add to the debt pile.
The numbers really tell the story, don't they? The sources are clear.
Yeah.
Roughly $10 trillion in debt back in 2008. Now $36 trillion.
Yeah.
It's like going from enjoying a pizza now and then to suddenly finding yourself buried under mountains of greasy receipts. It's kind of wild.
It's a useful analogy. And what's fascinating, as the sources point out, is that even with this, Everest of debt, you don't hear constant five-alarm fire bells ringing across Washington. They just seem to keep borrowing, keep printing.
Okay, that's the next big question then. With a debt mountain this vast, why isn't there more panic in D.C.? And the sources seem to point to this almost like magical concept, the world reserve currency.
Ah, yes. That is absolutely critical to understand. The U.S. dollar, well, it's basically the oxygen for global trade. It really is.
It's just, okay, think about it. Oil, gold, microchips, so many major things, they're priced in dollars. They're traded in dollars.
And the key consequence here is countries need dollars. They need them for trade, for reserves. And because U.S. Treasury bonds are seen as, well, the safest place to park cash globally.
The safest bet.
Yeah, the most liquid, the most stable. So other nations, they just keep buying these U.S. bonds. It actually props up demand for the dollar and lets America borrow more and more cheaply than anyone else could dream of. It's a unique position.
Ah, okay, so it's kind of like that shopaholic friend who somehow has an infinite credit limit. Well, for now, anyway.
Exactly. For now is the key phrase there. Because this all hinges on trust, right? What happens if that trust in the dollar, or its role as the ultimate safe asset, what if that starts to wobble?
Right. What happens if that infinite credit limit suddenly looks, well, not so infinite anymore?
And our sources are definitely picking up on this. They highlight how other major countries, think China, Russia, they're not just sitting back watching America's debt pile up with popcorn in hand, so to speak.
Right.
They're actively making moves. Slowly, maybe, but deliberately, trying to reduce how much they rely on the dollar.
Okay, like what kind of moves are we talking about?
Well, you see things like the BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now others joining.
Yeah, they're getting bigger.
Right, a huge chunk of the global economy. They're exploring ways to trade more using their own currencies. We're also seeing more bilateral deals cut between countries, settling trade directly, bypassing the dollar. And then there's the whole push towards central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
Ah, the digital currency angle.
Exactly. It's all part of these, subtle shifts. But the cumulative effect could be significant. These are moves aimed at maybe not dethroning the dollar overnight, but certainly chipping away at its dominance.
And the implication is, If enough countries, especially the big players, decide, you know what, we don't need the dollar quite so much anymore, then that magic credit card, it could actually get cut off, or at least have its limits slashed.
That's the potential risk, yes.
So let's bring this home. Stepping back from the global stage for a second. What does all this actually mean for you, our listener? Even if you're living thousands of miles away from the U.S., one source actually asked this directly, didn't it? Like, how does this affect someone sitting in India or Germany or Brazil?
That's the crucial connection. If the U.S. hits a real debt crisis, or even if there's just a serious loss of confidence in the dollar, the ripples go everywhere. They're not contained.
How so? What would that look like?
Because everything's so interconnected through the dollar, you could see interest rates spike, not just in the U.S., but worldwide.
Okay.
And that means, practically speaking, tougher loans for businesses trying to expand, for individuals wanting a mortgage. If you're thinking about studying abroad, that could get way more expensive. And markets, stock markets, bond markets, expect some serious roller coasters.
Wow, okay.
And remember all those U.S. bonds we talked about? Foreign countries' central banks, they hold trillions of dollars worth.
Yeah.
If the value of those bonds plummets, or worse, if the U.S. actually defaulted, which is, the nightmare scenario.
Unthinkable. Almost.
Almost. But if it happened, it would be like a financial earthquake shaking the entire global system. It truly validates that old saying the sources mention. America sneezes, and the whole world catches a cold. Maybe even pneumonia in this case.
A very potent image.
Well,
Okay, so this leads us to the really big question looming over everything. The future. Where is this heading? Is America barreling towards some kind of painful reset, or can it somehow pull another rabbit out of the hat, rewrite the rules again? What are the main arguments we're seeing?
Well, the experts cited in our sources are pretty divided. You've got two main camps, broadly speaking.
Okay.
On one side, you have those who really believe in American resilience. They point to the U.S.'s history of innovation, its dynamic economy, its sheer global influence.
Yeah.
They think it has the capacity to navigate this, to pull through like it has before.
The optimistic view.
Right. But then you have the other side, and they're issuing some pretty stark warnings. Their view is, unless the government gets spending under control, fundamentally changes course, this could end very, very badly.
How badly?
They often bring up history, pointing out that great empires, throughout time, they don't just fall because of wars. Often it's reckless finances, debts piling up, loss of confidence in their money, their stability. Financial mismanagement can bring giants down.
So history offers some cautionary tales there. And that really frames the core tension, doesn't it? This massive economic gamble the U.S. is running. And because of its global role, the whole world has chips on the table, too.
It really does. And this whole situation, it raises a really important question for all of us, wherever we live.
Which is?
Just how interconnected are we? We've seen how these huge, seemingly distant economic decisions like the U.S. national debt aren't distant at all. They can ripple outwards and profoundly shape our individual lives, global stability, even geopolitics. It forces us to think about financial interdependence.
Absolutely. It's not just numbers on a screen. It has real-world consequences. Which leaves us and you with a final question to mull over after this deep dive. Thinking about everything we've discussed, this $36 trillion question, is it all just overblown hype? Or are we genuinely on red alert here,